So what is organizational communication? And what are we doing when we study organizational communication? I want to try and answer these questions from two different perspectives. First, we can talk about organizational communication as the communication that happens within organizations. That is, all the communication activity you'll see if you go to any organization today. Sending emails, writing memos, talking on the phone, having meetings, and more meetings, teleconferencing, video conferencing, speeches, presentations, and so on. This is a more conventional approach, and I think it's what comes to mind when people initially think of organizational communication. But I want to go deeper. I want to introduce an alternative, more sophisticated approach of seeing organizations as communication. This can radically change how we understand human interaction in organizational life, and it opens up exciting new possibilities for research and practice. But first, let's say a bit more about the conventional approach to organizational communication, which focuses on communication within organizations. This perspective sees the organization as something like a container, and communication is what flows within the container. If we extend the metaphor, we can see how communicating is then shaped by the structure of the organization, in the same way that liquids take the shape of their physical containers. And by the shape of the container, we can mean the physical shape of the organization, like if you have to take the elevator up 10 floors to deliver a report to your boss, or more of a symbolic shape, like where you are in the organizational hierarchy and how this influences the way you communicate with other organizational members. The key here is that the organization is seen as something that exists separately from communication. So communication is quote-unquote organizational when it happens within these separate structures we call organizations. This relates to what scholars call an informational view of communication, because communication is all about transmitting information throughout the container of the organization. And quote-unquote ineffective communication or communication breakdowns are seen as technical problems. The right information didn't get to the right people in the right manner. Someone didn't get the memo, as people like to say. And this is important stuff. It's how the work of organizations gets done, from small businesses and multinational corporations to nonprofits and government agencies. If organizations don't communicate the right information to the right people at the right times in the right ways, things fall apart. Directions aren't followed, customers aren't satisfied, clients aren't served, regulations aren't obeyed. General chaos ensues. And in certain high-risk organizations, like our military or your local fire department, getting the right information to the right people is absolutely critical. So, we certainly need effective communication within organizations. But again, I want to go deeper, beyond this conventional view of organizational communication. Because as important as this conventional view is for the day-to-day operations of organizations, I just don't think this view fully captures the complexities of organizing and communicating in our society. In a perfect world, we could create more efficient structures of information sharing so that the right people would always have the right information, and miscommunication would be a thing of the past. But a funny thing happened on the way to communication paradise. Turns out, different people interpret the exact same message very differently. That people can be deceptive in their communication, and their motives are incredibly difficult to figure out. That the meaning of language changes depending upon the context. And that what you don't communicate is often more important than what you do communicate, or that what you say is often much less important than how you say it. And that people often, if not usually, communicate for many other reasons than to just transmit information. And these are not just aberrations. This is the normal state of affairs for human interaction. Why is it, after all, that quote-unquote communication problems are continually mentioned as one of the main difficulties for most organizations? Is it just that people aren't getting the right information? Well, if so, this is merely a technical problem that should improve as we develop new ways to get better information to more people more efficiently. But it seems like almost the opposite is happening. That the more sophisticated our communication technologies have gotten over the years, the more communication problems we actually have. Now, why is that? Perhaps it's because there is more going on with communication than just transmitting information.